last show, it was really kind of just after, the fires and things were kind of starting to get back to normal. And then the weekend of our last show is really when the floods happened.
Yeah, well, it was when the floods happened.
And the weather here in Nova Scotia has just been really all over the place. And really, our hearts go out to anyone who's been impacted by the floods, and obviously anybody who was impacted by the fires. We don't want to forget about these things. But we just have so many clients, and so many people were impacted. We've had clients reach out to us. They're dealing with insurance claims. We're helping them talk to their lenders, about potentially looking at deferrals and things like that. And a lot of people were impacted.
What are some of the bigger issues that you're hearing from people over all of this?
You know what? I've heard a lot of people don't have enough insurance coverage. So I'm hearing people that are potentially looking at taking a settlement even from their insurance company, because it's hard to get a contractor right now. Really tough.
Yeah.
Contractors are busy. I mean, it's a busy time of year anyway. And they're thinking about taking a settlement, but the amount of money that they're getting is not enough to necessarily get the work done. Either they don't have enough insurance on their structure, or the work that they want to do is, bigger than maybe the insurance company will give. So we've actually been seeing some customers in the office, even looking at, maybe borrowing some money to maybe do some work on their homes as well as, just a consequence of needing to do an insurance claim. They wouldn't necessarily have done it proactively, but if they're like, if we're getting some work done now, we might as well really go all in.
So why is it that people are underinsured in some cases? Just were the brokers or whomever they were working with not doing their jobs, or ultimately who's, I guess, responsible?
I think insurance, like home insurance, and, sometimes just auto renews. People don't necessarily dive deep into, do we have replacement coverage to our home? What is the building limit? Do we have coverage for things like act of God and water and all these things that can really have such an impact on your home?
Overland water. I mean, this is something that people don't have coverage for in many cases.
A lot of people do not have any coverage for this type of issue.
Of thing,
And by and large, there's a lot of provinces in Canada that really don't have finished basements. But we have a lot of homes here that we live below grade in many cases. And, living below grade can certainly be a challenge, especially based on the water table. It can also be a challenge when we're talking about things like radon gas. And there's challenges here in Nova Scotia that are just not present in other provinces. Just like I'm sure there's challenges in other provinces that are not present here. And that's why you almost need to be the best advocate for yourself. And I think when things come up like your insurance, you need to open your insurance binder that you're getting from your insurer and go through the chattels of your insurance and see what is covered and what is not covered. Figure out how much coverage you have. I did the same thing with myself recently. I moved from one insurance company to another insurance company and actually saved a couple bucks, but I got more coverage. And I was dealing with a broker because, I have a relationship with the broker. I have other insurance products with that broker, and the broker gave me really, really good advice and saved me a couple bucks. It's the same thing in our industry. And I think customers sometimes really don't understand what a mortgage broker does and why a mortgage broker might be, important to have a conversation with. But we are so entrenched in dealing with insurance brokers, and they're just a way of life. Like my parents dealt with insurance broker my entire life growing up, the same person. They had a relationship with them. And yes, there are some direct writers for insurance, like, for example, TD Meloche-Monix. They're what we consider kind of a direct writer. They have a couple insurance companies that they work with, including TD Insurance. But the majority of insurance that is bound here in Nova Scotia is with a broker. That is the most common. And you know what? I think it's very similar when you're dealing with a mortgage broker. More and more mortgages are now being funded with mortgage brokers, really, than ever have been before.
And to your point, I think it's great when you can deal with somebody for a lifetime. And my parents did the same thing. They dealt with an insurance company for their entire life. Why? Because they were close by in that community. They developed a relationship with the person. They liked the person. But sometimes that can be a disadvantage because that broker or whomever can just simply rewrite the business and not shop it around, perhaps not be competitive, not have one-on-one interviews.
And I think some of it just happens automatically.
And say, okay, what's changed in your home or what are your needs now?
Yes.
Whereas with you guys, like I'll use you for an example, you guys have annual reviews with people. because of these specific reasons that we're talking about.
And
Things
people's
change,
needs change so
people's
much,
change.
Todd.
Right, yeah.
It shocks me. Just think about what your situation is.
Yeah.
Your living situation has changed over the last months and years. My situation has changed over the last years. And you know what? People's situation changes all the time. And when you set something up, I think we're just, as even humans, we're so easy just to set things and forget it. But I think when we're talking about mortgage lending, when we're talking about insurance, when we're talking about our finances, they're not always a set it and forget it type thing.
Yeah. So, and it's not the time that when you need it. That's not when you want to know that you don't have it. Obviously, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here when I say that. But that's
you don't want to have to do an insurance claim.
Yeah,
Nobody wants
to.
No.
But when you've got water in the basement, or you've got something happening, or whatever it might be, that is not the time that you want to be finding out what you're covered for and what you're not covered for.
100%.
Yeah.
And with everyone's insurance coverage, if you have a mortgage or a lien against your property, the bank is the first loss payee. So they're getting paid first before anybody else is getting paid. They want to make sure their security is being protected.
Yep.
So if you were to take a settlement, so, quote unquote, I'm air quoting right now, from your insurance company, the bank needs to concur that they're going to sign those funds over to you, because they want to know that those funds are going to be going into the property to make sure the property is still going to be protected and the value is still going to be maintained. So certainly some questions you have to talk to with your lender. And, the lender's really going to review things like an insurance claim. And they review every file on a case-by-case basis. Everybody's situation is different.
I would think with all of these insurance claims that this is going to impact rates, home rates.
Like home insurance rate?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I think they already have been impacted. I think even leading up to this, Todd, we've been having more and more hurricanes. Our weather is changing here in Nova Scotia. Our risk is higher. And it's not just suddenly we woke up one day and, climate change happened. This has been going on for years. Yeah. Hundreds of years, really. Yeah. And now we are starting to see the impacts here in Atlantic Canada more and more than we have before. And I don't want to be like doomsday, but maybe this is only the tip of the iceberg. Do I think Nova Scotia is eventually going to be like Florida or California? Or is it going to be like summer weather all the time? Probably not in our lifetime, but certainly climate is changing and we are receiving the impacts of
Do you anticipate potentially some large insurers just saying we're not covering? Because that's happened in the United States. There have been California, I think, is one region where some, and I can't remember which
like
ones.
Nationwide.
Huge insurance companies that say we're no longer writing business in California because of wildfires.
Nova Scotia, I think, is small enough that it's not a huge impact to some of these insurance companies. Yeah. But, if the results are just bad on bad, they might make a decision not to insure. There certainly are lenders who will not do business in Quebec specifically because they don't like the letter of the law in Quebec compared to the rest of the provinces across the country. Yeah. So it certainly could happen.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
We're certainly going to talk about inflation. We're going to talk about mortgage rates.
The market, perhaps.
We're going to talk about the market and about refinance. Lots of stuff to talk about.
Okay. Mortgage 101, your guide to home ownership. We'll be right back.
If you've liked what you've heard and you want to learn more, feel free to visit us online at teamclinton.ca.